Okay, in this video we're going to make our first JavaScript file, and then we're going to actually change it and make it so it's an API, so we can import data from another website, and I'll explain all of that as we go along. But the very first thing we're going to do is make a website, and we're going to do some JavaScript. We're going to do the first sort of bit of JavaScript that maybe some of you have ever done before, and we'll put that into a website. So I'm in brackets, and I'm going to go File, and I'm going to say New, and I'm going to make a new file in my brackets. I'm going to save it straight away because I always like to get all the extra help and the support from brackets. So I'm just going to go to my desktop, and I'm just going to call this Java test. That'll do, Java test.html. So it's an HTML file. I'm saving it to my desktop, and I hit save. Okay, now we're going to make a website. Now we're going to do this the same way that we always do. We start off with doc type, and we say HTML. So we know that it's going to be a document, an HTML document. Let's then go through and put in my first set of tags. Right. Oh, come on. That's terrible typing. HTML. Close my bracket. Right. And you can see brackets does the opposite end of the tag for me, which I've talked to you about before that I really like. Right. So then we do title. In fact, let's just leave the title there. Let's put that title inside a head. So let's go. Okay, so there's my head. Let's put the title inside the head because that's good practice. In fact, that's the right practice. Okay, so we've got the title inside the head. Then we want to have a body. Okay, and then at this stage that'll do to start with because I want to explain everything else as we go along, right? So let's call this my first JavaScript. Okay, my first JavaScript. Let's go into the body, and we might as well put a heading in there as well, saying my first JavaScript, right? My first JavaScript page. Okay, so now we've got a heading in our body. So at this stage, I know I'm going quickly, but all of you have done websites before, so you know this is the basic structure of a website. We've got the head section where we can put in styling if we want to. We can put scripts in up there. We could put the title in up there. We've got the body section, which is the bit that everyone sees on the page, all right? So this is what people are going to actually see. This title up here will be like the heading in this bar up here. This title will be the heading actually on the page, right? Now, what we're going to do is on this page, we're going to put a button. And this button is going to have an action, and the action of that button is when you click it, it's going to run essentially a function. Similar to the way we run a function in Python, this one's going to run a function. And this is how I'm going to do my button. I'm going to say, have a button, and on the click, let's run a function. The function, let's call it get data, and close the brackets. So that's the function I want it to run when the button is clicked, all right? So we're going to create a button. On the click of the mouse, go and run this function called getData, okay? Now, we need to put a little title on the button, so we might as well put getData, oops. GetData, and call that the title that's going to be on the, oh, come on, what are you doing? Let's cut that and put that on the other end, okay. Right, so here's the start of my button. Inside the first tag, we're putting on the click, go and run the function get data. We're putting a little title on the button saying get data, and that's our button, right? Now, we also want to have a paragraph of text, right? So let's put a paragraph here, and the paragraph, let's give that an ID equal to result. Okay, because when we actually run the function, we want something to happen, right? So we kind of need to have a result for something happening. Now at the moment, there's nothing happening. So let's put nothing yet, ... So we're waiting, right? So there's nothing yet, and we're waiting for something to happen. Okay, so up till now, this is all HTML. We've just done normal HTML that we've always done before. We've created a button. We've given it an action that's on click, go and run a function. And we've created this little line of text that says nothing yet, and we're giving that an ID called result. Now, this is where we want to actually start writing some JavaScript, right? So I'm going to put the word script, and I'm going to close that, so I've got my beginning and end. And essentially, like we do in Python, we're going to create a function. And this function we know is going to be called getData, so I might as well just copy that, put it there, get data. That's going to be my function. Now, in JavaScript, we do curly brackets in here, and in here we write what we want it to do, right? Now, what we want it to do is we want it to go to our page, find this ID called results, and then we want to change this text to say that something has happened. So at the moment it says nothing yet, but when we actually click the button, we want to say, yes, something happened, something did change in here. And we're using this ID to sort of tell the function where to go and find this text. The ID is sort of a locator for this text, nearly like a variable saying this is where the text is called, right? So we're going to go and search through the whole document and find this. So what we do is we say document, which is essentially go through the whole document, get element, get element by ID, right? It's already coming up here to help me. So if I say click on that, get element by ID. So it's saying go and get the element that has the ID of, and we're going to use the ID result, right? So we go bracket, inverted commas, go and find the element that has that's called result. So it's going to say, all right, click the button, run the function. Inside the function, we're going to search the whole document. We're going to go and get whatever the element is that has the ID of result, and there's our element with the ID result, and at the moment it's got nothing yet in there. So we want to change that. We want to say, all right, the inner text, we want it to be new, and what we want it to say this time is, we want it to say button clicked, exclamation mark, and semicolon at the end. And that's it. That's our script, right? So we've pretty much made a script right there so that when the web page starts up, it'll have a button on the page here that if we click it, it runs a function. It goes down to this function down here, and this function goes, search through your whole document, find anything with the ID result. And if you find anything with the ID result, change the text, the inner text inside here, this text, change that text to say button clicked, and that's it. It's a JavaScript file. So let's save that. Command S. Let's run that file. So normally you click on there, but I'm going to run it on my desktop first over here. Here we go. Here's my page. I'm running just directly from the desktop because this thing doesn't always work for me because I've got 5 different programming things set up, right? So here's my page. My first JavaScript page. Great. That's the heading. Here's my button that says get data and nothing yet. Now, if I click this button, it changed to button clicked. All right, so I know my JavaScript worked, my function, it worked. So that's it, that's all it did. Now, it doesn't do anymore because I've already done it once. Even if it's going and even if the function is running again, it already says button clicked, so it's just replacing it with the same button clicked, right? So that's it. That's a simple JavaScript file in a website, right? Now, how do we make that actually useful? Because really, you don't want to just click a button and change a word. So it doesn't really make it very useful. So what we want to do is we actually want to put in something here that when you click the button, something actually happens. And what we're going to do is we're going to use an API. It's called an Application Program Interface, an API. And what that is essentially is when you click the button, it goes on the internet, it finds a little bit of information on the internet, it brings it back and it puts it on your web page. And when you do a search on this and when you're teaching this, you talk about it like you're a person in a restaurant sitting at a table and the cook's in the kitchen cooking the meal, and you send the waiter to go and get your meal and bring it back again. That's what the API is. The API is like the waiter. It goes and gets a little bit of information from another website and it brings it back and puts it onto your website. So that's essentially what an API is, an application program interface. It's like the waiter in a restaurant, okay? Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to actually make our own API. We're going to, not even make it, we're going to use an API that's already out there on the weather system, and we're going to change this page and we're going to make it tell me what the weather is in Milan today. That's what we're going to do. So I've saved this already as Java test. I'm going to do it save as, and I'm going to say file, save as, and I'm going to actually save it this time as weather API. So I'm going to call it weatherapi.html. So I've actually just duplicated the file by saving it like that. Now I'm going to change this to my weather API. That's the title. I might as well do exactly the same title on the actual screen. change it to that. Let's leave the function the same because we could just use the same function, I think. I'm going to go through and change this here and say nothing yet. I'm going to say, what is the weather? What is the weather? Question mark. And then if you click the button, let's change it from get data to get the weather. Okay, so now I'm going to have a button that says get weather on it. When you click that button, it should tell me what the weather is. Now we need to change this script. So what we're going to do, we're going to leave that function called get data there, but we're actually going to change this section in here. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, let's delete this because I don't want to get confused with what's already there. So I'm just going to delete that line in there. We're going to leave the function called get data, or we could change the function name to get weather instead of get data if we want. So let's do that. Let's change it to get weather. And then let's change our function name down here to get weather. So you can see the function name is not really as important, right? Let's make this async. Okay, so I'm just going to put async in here. Now, async essentially is like, it's like a promise. It's like, I promise you I will return something. I promise you I will return you some information. I'm not just going to give you a heading back or something like that. I'm going to actually return some information to you. It's like a little promise. You don't have to have it. You could run it as a function, but it's like an extra layer of security to make sure that your function's actually running and giving you some feedback at the end, right? Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to say where we want to sync this to. Now, I already have a place. If you go to Open Meteor, or it's a weather station website, if you go to this website, then it'll actually already, it has an API set up that you can link to and that you can get information from. It's like a public website that it lets people link to. Now, okay, so I thought I might just jump across to this page really quickly. This is a free weather API, right? So this is the one we're going to use in our program just to show you how it all works. And you just go to the website, you go to the link up here at the top, and you go down, and this tells you it's a free weather API, right? Now it shows you different ways that you can do different things. And I said in the video, and I will say in the video several times, you need to read the documentation. You need to see what it is you're looking for, how you want to use it, and that sort of stuff. Now, it can show you different examples of ways that you can put code into your program, but essentially, without reading the documentation, you're kind of limiting yourself, right? So that's one of the things that I suggest you do. You can try it. You can click Try the API here, and it'll show you lots of different things that it can do and things that it can find. If you continue scrolling down, it actually gives you some of the key terms. Like here's the API documentation. This is the stuff that you need to put into your program if you're going to use this API. And it tells you, if you put in the longitude and the latitude, it'll tell you what location you're in, so you can get the weather in whatever location you're currently in. You can look up all of these different things. You can look up all of these different ways and have it all on your page if you want to have it. And this is free. It's a free API, which is really great. It's a really easy one for beginners to learn to use, to pull the weather into their web page. So essentially you could have, whatever your web page is, you could have the weather in the top left-hand corner for your current location for Milan, whatever the day and the time and all that sort of stuff, you can have it in there. So this is where we're going to get this, but the key to it is read the documentation for this website on how to use the API. Now, the API could be anything. You could be connecting to a stock exchange. You could be connecting to, I don't know, a website that does something specific, records statistics or whatever it is, right? Now, essentially what you need to do with the API is you need to go and find what APIs are available. You need to go online and you need to read their information. You can't just make it up. You need to actually go and find their information. Now, when you do that, it'll normally tell you the way to fetch the information. It'll normally tell you the way to be that waiter that goes in between your website and their website and get it. It normally tells you the method that they want to use. So in this situation, I know this one because I've used this one before, and it is a website that's going to give me some weather. Now, I'm actually just going to cut and paste this here because it's a longer website. I don't particularly want to write it all out. So I'm just going to cut and paste this link to this website. So here I've just pasted in the link to that website, to the place that I want to go, and you'll see it says openmedia.com. It's an API that you can use, and I've put in here the longitude and the latitude of Milan in Italy because that's where I want the weather, and I want the current weather conditions, right? So that's essentially what you're going to do. Now, like I said, to get this information, you need to read the documentation on the API. It can't be just something you make up. You can't just connect to people without their permission. You need to actually read, how do I connect this API to my JavaScript, to my web page, right? Now, then you want to get a response, and you want to wait for it to fetch the response from the URL. Okay, so we're saying we're going to get a response. Let's wait for it. Go to the URL and see what response we get. And this is what the URL is. We're saying let the URL equal this, and then let's let response, our new variable, equal whatever comes back from the URL, right? So this let is like create variable, right? So now let's let data equal await response .json brackets colon. Now, normally these APIs use this JSON method to do it. It's like, let me see. It's like two different types of programming language talking to each other. Again, it's similar to what I was saying about the kitchen and the person sitting in the restaurant. The person sitting in the restaurant is sending a message one way. Now, the guy in the kitchen might read it differently or interpret it differently, but the waiter in between the two needs to make sure that they're talking to each other and that they're working with each other, right? So that's what this JSON is. It's like a different method of talking, but they're still being able to communicate. Right, now we're going to write a line really similar to what we did in our very first file, in our first JavaScript file. We're going to say, go to the document, and get the element by ID, which we did last time, exactly the same. Let's get this result in here, right? So we're going to do exactly what we did last time. Okay, and we are going to, instead of changing the text, we're going to actually add a little bit of our own HTML, right? So instead of just what is the weather, instead of just immediately changing that, we're going to change a little bit of the HTML. So we're just going to say inner HTML equals, and so this is saying put this in its place, right? And we're going to put in temperature, and then let's do colon space. And then to get the temperature, let's go plus, let's see, we've got, this one's called data, right? So we're going to get the data, and we're going to say, what I want from that data is I want the current underscore weather dot temperature, because I know that that's one that I've used before. I know that's a method that they've told me to use to get the weather from the weather people. All right, so to explain this line, right? This section here, current weather dot temperature, and I know up here on this website, they tell me if you want to get the current weather, you get current weather dot temperature, and that'll give you what the current temperature is. Now, you can actually go to this site, and there's lots of things you can get. You can get wind speed, you can get wind direction, you can get a possibility of rain, you can get lots of different things. I don't want any of that. I just want the weather in Milan and what the current temperature is. So, and we saved this into our data section here when we got a response from them. So we waited for a response, we got the response, we've collected that response into the data section here, and now we're going to display those responses down here, and we've got current weather. That's what we've got, right? Now, let's put something else in here as well. Let's put the degrees in centigrade degrees, and then let's say, what else? We want to put the wind speed. So let's do wind speed. Oh, I don't want this on the same line. I want this on a separate line. So let's put in a break. Okay, so let's then get the wind speed, colon, space, and now we need to do something like this as well. How are we getting the wind speed, right? So we're going to say go to the data dot get the current weather underscore weather, and this time instead of getting the temperature, we're going to get wind speed, and that's going to be in kilometers per hour. So let's go plus kph, kilometers. Let's go kilometers per hour. Right, that's it. That's all I really need there. I don't really need to put anything else in. Kilometers per hour, semicolon, and that's the end. That's the end of my script, right? So, as a quick overview, you need to watch the first part of the video so you understand how the JavaScript works. Now, we're putting in a different script here that essentially is promising to send us back some information when we run this function. And we're asking this function by clicking on the get weather button, right? So when we run this function, it has a URL. We've created a URL. This is the location of the URL. Then we're saying, go and try and get a response from the URL. Here's the URL, go and get it. Wait for this response. And if you get a response, store that into this variable here called data. And once it's in this variable here called data, it could be a JSON file. We make sure that we've got that data and we're ready to use it. Then in our document, we find where the, see, it's worth checking your code. We find where the result ID is, which was up here. And we're going to say, right, let's change this, what is the weather? And let's add a little bit of extra HTML. Let's put the temperature and go and get the temperature in degrees. Let's have on the next line, let's get the wind speed, go and get the wind speed, and we'll put in kilometers per hour, and that should save our file. So let's go File, Save, and I'll double click on this weather API file now. I'll bring it onto the screen for you to see it. Here it is, My Weather API, get weather, what is the weather? And if I click it, it just changed to temperature, it's 24.5 degrees, and the wind speed is 7 kilometers per hour, right? So that's the way it works. Now, if you didn't like this in here either, you could go through and you could actually just put a space in there first, space in there, save that, go back to here, refresh the page, get the weather, and now you see there's a space in there. In fact, there should be a degree centigrade. But anyway, that's how it works. That's how an API works. So if you had both of those questions, how do I use JavaScript and how do I use an API? This is it. The one thing that I think I really need to stress to you is you need to find the API and you need to read the information on how they want you to fetch and respond. That's the key. These two lines here are the key. How do they want you to get the information? How are you going to store that information? And then how are you going to use it down here, right? So that's the key to it. All right, that's it for this video. I hope it's been helpful.